Prepare to immerse yourself in a tale of betrayal, redemption, and breathtaking revenge. Meet Cassandra Montemayor, a once devoted wife who sacrificed everything: her career dreams, personal aspirations, and even her heart for a man who was never worthy of her in the first place. When she discovered her husband, James, locked in a scandalous affair with his ambitious mistress, the heartbreak nearly shattered her. But what followed next was a twist so bold it astounded everyone in their privileged social circle. Cassandra didn't just move on. She rose from the ashes and returned mightier than ever, ready to seize the company James treasured most and hand him his final humiliation. Cassandra Montemayor vividly remembered the crisp autumn afternoon when her picture-perfect life disintegrated. It was the day she learned of James's indiscretion in the most mortifying way possible. She'd gone into his office at Montemayor Logistics, a family-run shipping and freight operation that James had inherited from his father, to surprise him with homemade lunch. She was armed with a wicker basket containing his favorite grilled eggplant sandwich, a thermos of iced coffee, and an envelope of photographs from their recent trip to Santorini. The plan was simple: slip in quietly, scatter rose petals around his desk, and wait for him to return from a meeting. Their marriage had been rocky in recent months. James often claimed that the company was under enormous pressure. He insisted he had to work extra hours just to keep it afloat. Cassandra, who had given up her thriving marketing career to become the supportive spouse he always said he needed, believed his every word until that day. She opened the door to his executive suite, carefully closing it behind her to preserve the element of surprise. That was when she heard soft giggles from the adjoining lounge area. Thinking it was just a casual conversation, she stepped forward. The sight that greeted her was nothing short of devastating. James stood there, his arms around Rachel Morgan, Cassandra's close friend, and the new marketing director Montemayor Logistics had hired just 3 months prior. Their hands were intertwined, their faces too close, and the energy between them crackled with intimacy that went far beyond friendship or professionalism. Cassandra could not believe the man she had been married to for nearly 8 years would do this. And with Rachel, no less a woman whom Cassandra had personally recommended for the position, using her own professional contacts to secure Rachel an interview. The betrayal felt like 1,000 knives stabbing her chest. James froze, cheeks draining of color. Rachel sprang backward, adjusting her blouse with trembling fingers. For a single, excruciating moment, the three of them were trapped in a silent tableau of shock, guilt, and heartbreak. Then Cassandra's heartbreak transformed into a raging storm that would alter all their lives forever. The first few weeks after the discovery were a blur. Cassandra had packed a few belongings, left their opulent penthouse in downtown Dallas, and taken refuge at her friend Sierra's apartment. Sierra, a former colleague at Cassandra's old marketing agency, now worked for one of the top PR firms in Texas. At first, Sierra had difficulty grasping the extent of James's betrayal. "I thought you two were the city's golden couple," Sierra lamented one night. They'd been sipping lukewarm tea at 3 a.m., Cassandra's eyes puffy from an entire day of crying. "He was always throwing these anniversary parties at the country club, bringing you roses for the smallest reason." Cassandra exhaled, stared at the swirling tea in her cup, and recalled how James had once given her 300 roses for her birthday, 1 rose for each day he claimed she made his life perfect. The memory felt like a cruel joke. It wasn't just heartbreak that tormented her, it was the realization that the life she believed she had was a delusion. The betrayal became a citywide scandal when rumors spread among the wealthy social circles of Dallas. James came from old money, and Montemayor Logistics was revered in shipping circles, not just in Texas, but throughout the southern states. Cassandra found herself in the eye of a hurricane of speculation. Their private drama became the talk of the local country club. Ladies who once envied her now pitied her. Men who had admired James's business acumen started whispering about the catastrophic moral lapse behind closed doors. Adding to her anguish was Rachel Morgan's smugness. Rachel hadn't just stolen Cassandra's husband, she'd also begun flaunting her new position in the company. She posted gleeful pictures on Instagram sipping champagne in James's office, throwing subtle jabs with captions like, "Celebrating new beginnings." Friends forwarded these to Cassandra with messages of horror and sympathy, which only made her feel more humiliated. During that period, Cassandra was torn between fury and hopelessness. She was seething at how quickly James had dismissed her contributions to their marriage, the supportive role she'd played while he was building Montemayor Logistics. Yet, she had no clear plan for the future. It felt as if she'd been exiled from her own life. Little did she know that her path to unimaginable revenge was just beginning. Before her marriage to James, Cassandra had been Cassandra Jameson, a marketing prodigy who had worked for top-tier clients like Apple, Nike, and Procter & Gamble. She was known for her uncanny ability to gauge market trends and develop campaigns that set new industry standards. Back then, colleagues marveled at her drive, creativity, and dedication. Ironically, James had first encountered her at an after-party following a major tech conference in Austin. Cassandra was presenting a groundbreaking social media marketing strategy for a startup that would later be acquired by a Fortune 500 giant. James, who was in the audience, was entranced by her commanding stage presence, the contagious enthusiasm she radiated, and her formidable intelligence. They soon began dating. James never shied away from praising Cassandra's brilliance in public or private. He would often proclaim that she was the brain and heart of his life and express eagerness for them to build a future empire together. When Cassandra left her thriving career to help James reorganize Montemayor Logistics. After his father's passing, she did so out of love and a shared vision. The couple's synergy, in the early days, was indeed impressive. Cassandra reorganized the company's marketing strategy, while James handled operational logistics. Profits soared. Over time, however, James began to resent being overshadowed by his wife's skill. His sense of pride, ingrained in him from a long line of wealthy patriarchs, refused to share the limelight. With each success that Cassandra brought to the company, James pulled further away, eventually discouraging her from taking on too visible a role. Whether consciously or not, he wanted her brilliance dulled. Cassandra, longing to maintain harmony, acquiesced. She gradually retreated from the business's front lines, focusing instead on supporting James from behind the scenes. That was how Rachel Morgan was hired, ironically on Cassandra's strong recommendation to bring in fresh perspective. The rest was heartbreak. In the weeks following the affair's discovery, Cassandra reflected on her past self. She realized she had buried the unstoppable marketing visionary she once was beneath the label of devoted wife. It was in rediscovering those old pieces of her identity that she found renewed hope and the blueprint for her ultimate comeback. Not one to remain idle for long, Cassandra channeled her heartbreak into self-improvement. She contacted a former mentor, Dr. Viola Kenshaw, a respected marketing professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. Cassandra had once been a star pupil. She reached out hesitantly, not sure if her old mentor would remember her with the same fondness. To her surprise, Dr. Kenshaw answered immediately and spoke like they were old friends. When Cassandra confided in her about the divorce and betrayal, Dr. Kenshaw offered a gentle admonishment: never let someone else's choices define your worth. She encouraged Cassandra to attend an upcoming private networking event in New York City. High-powered investors, entrepreneurs, and even well-known figures like Warren Buffett would be there. "This is your chance to show everyone you're back in the game," Dr. Kenshaw said. Buoyed by the idea, Cassandra impulsively flew to New York. She had no concrete plan. She just knew she had to do something to reassert her place in the world. That weekend, dressed in an elegant yet understated black suit, she navigated a labyrinth of high-net-worth individuals at a Manhattan penthouse event. Through Dr. Kenshaw's introductions, Cassandra met a diverse circle of potential investors, tech founders, and philanthropic moguls. One of the most notable encounters was with Ling Zhao, a venture capitalist known for her uncanny knack for investing in disruptive ideas. Ling had read about Cassandra's marketing prowess from years back. When Cassandra casually mentioned her experiences revamping Montemayor Logistics, Ling was genuinely intrigued. As the evening went on, Cassandra found herself telling her story in a measured tone, never once letting bitterness overshadow her accomplishments. Her poise amidst personal turmoil caught the attention of everyone she spoke to. By the end of the night, she walked away with multiple business cards and a swirl of proposals, each promising substantial capital for any new venture she might choose to undertake. That was the moment Cassandra realized she might be able to do more than just regain her dignity. She could surpass every goal she once held. If Montemayor Logistics was going to treat her like an afterthought, perhaps she would build something bigger. Or, more tantalizing still, maybe she would discover a way to buy them out. The seed of revenge began to take root in her mind. In the following months, Cassandra threw herself into building a new empire, one that had her signature all over it. She formed a startup called Phoenix Prime Ventures, focusing on emerging technologies in the e-commerce and logistics sectors. Drawing from her extensive marketing background, Cassandra shaped the company's brand identity to be sleek, modern, and daring, everything she felt Montemayor Logistics was missing. She leveraged her network, from former colleagues to brand managers who remembered her brilliance, to jumpstart Phoenix Prime's presence. Ling Zhao became a key investor, funneling millions into the company in exchange for a seat on the board. Their synergy was uncanny. Cassandra had the ideas and marketing genius. Ling brought in resources and a global network of partner firms, especially in Asia. Before long, Phoenix Prime was making waves in the venture capital world. They started a pilot program that integrated advanced AI-driven route optimization for shipping companies. Big names in the retail and manufacturing sectors took notice, seeing how drastically Phoenix Prime's innovations could cut overhead costs. Investors clamored for a slice of the action. Meanwhile, news of Cassandra's meteoric comeback began filtering back to Dallas. The local tabloids and socialite gossip columns, once fixated on the sensational Montemayor divorce, now buzzed about her. Some articles described her as a phoenix rising from the ashes, a woman scorned who was forging a new legacy. James, consumed by the daily grind of maintaining Montemayor Logistics, didn't grasp the scale of Cassandra's new venture until Montemayor's own clients began mentioning Phoenix Prime in passing, praising the newcomer's technological breakthroughs. Rachel, who had effectively taken over the marketing department, dismissed Phoenix Prime as a flash in the pan. But the undercurrent of unease at Montemayor Logistics grew as more and more executives from competitor shipping companies started forging alliances with Cassandra's startup. By the one-year mark, Phoenix Prime had established international connections, forged strategic partnerships, and doubled its initial valuation. Investors who once viewed Cassandra as merely the ex-wife of James Montemayor now hailed her as a visionary. The metamorphosis was complete. Cassandra was no longer merely trying to escape the shadow of Montemayor Logistics. She was poised to overtake it, if not absorb it entirely. While Cassandra was building her empire, Montemayor Logistics stumbled. The global shipping industry experienced fluctuations due to new environmental regulations and evolving consumer demands. James, lacking Cassandra's marketing acumen and innovative spark, couldn't navigate these challenges adeptly. Rachel Morgan tried to step in, but her marketing strategies were uninspired knockoffs of Cassandra's previous successes. As the company's profits declined, employees grew restless. Montemayor Logistics was once a family-oriented firm where staff felt valued. Under James's often erratic leadership, morale plummeted. Rumors of layoffs circulated. Upper management grew apprehensive, worried they would lose top-tier clients who wanted more cutting-edge, eco-friendly solutions. One afternoon, a rumor began to spread across the Dallas business circuit. A mystery investor was slowly acquiring shares of Montemayor Logistics. Small blocks of stock were purchased daily, never enough to draw immediate attention, but enough to suggest a steadily increasing interest in controlling the company. The acquisitions became a hot topic among analysts who tried and failed to identify the buyer. Cassandra, of course, knew exactly who it was: Phoenix Prime Ventures. Using various holding companies and shell corporations to maintain anonymity, Cassandra orchestrated a plan to quietly gain a controlling interest. She knew that if James discovered she was behind it, he might take drastic measures to block the takeover. So she moved meticulously, focusing on smaller shareholders who were tired of seeing the company's stock price drop under James's ineffectual management. To secure these shares, Cassandra leveraged her personal assets and the capital from Phoenix Prime's massive success. She also made sure to handle every deal with ironclad, non-disclosure agreements. In hushed conference rooms around the country, Cassandra's proxies bought out frustrated investors, one stock bundle at a time. Behind the scenes, Cassandra felt a mix of vindication and unease. She took no joy in destroying what James's late father had built. However, the memory of James and Rachel's betrayal, the humiliation she had endured, and the lost years of her career fueled her relentless pursuit. She would not only reclaim her dignity, she would claim the very company that James once refused to share credit for. Within a few months, Cassandra was perched on the precipice of holding the majority stake. All that remained was to play her final hand in a very public way. The day finally arrived. Montemayor Logistics scheduled its quarterly board meeting, a gathering that promised tension. James had been scrambling for new investor support. Rachel Morgan was under fire to produce marketing results to offset declining numbers. The entire board was restless. The meeting took place in the executive conference room on the 25th floor of the Montemayor building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of downtown Dallas. James sat at the head of the long mahogany table, flanked by Rachel and the CFO, Eduardo Silva. The rest of the board members were an eclectic mix, some old family friends of the Montemayors. Others were institutional investors and longtime stakeholders. As the meeting commenced, James launched into a defensive presentation about the need for further cost-cutting measures and streamlined operations. Rachel chimed in with a half-hearted marketing plan that seemed to revolve around discount packages and rebranding efforts. The board listened politely, but the atmosphere was tense. Then came the moment Cassandra had been waiting for. The CFO cleared his throat to address the elephant in the room. "There's been a major shift in company ownership," he said, tapping on an electronic chart that appeared on the screen behind him. A new majority stakeholder now controls 52% of Montemayor Logistics stock. Silence blanketed the room. A wave of fear flickered in James's eyes. Rachel's jaw tightened. Was it a rival shipping conglomerate? A competitor? James began to demand answers, his voice shaky with anger. "Who?" he nearly shouted. "Which group dared to do this behind my back?" At that exact moment, the double doors swung open, revealing Cassandra Montemayor, now Cassandra Jameson, again dressed in a sharp navy pantsuit. She stepped into the boardroom with a calm confidence that made James's face drain of color. A hush fell over everyone. Several board members recognized her instantly, recalling how she used to attend these meetings with James back in the day, offering brilliant insights. Slowly she walked to the head of the table next to James. "It's me," she said softly, yet her voice carried through the room with unmistakable command. "I'm the new majority shareholder through my venture company, Phoenix Prime, and I'm here to discuss the future of Millionaire Logistics." No one moved. No one spoke. For what felt like an eternity, the room was suspended in shock. Then, in a panicked flurry, James attempted to assert his authority. He slammed his hand on the table, sending documents fluttering. "This is absurd," he shouted, voice cracking. "You have no right to." Cassandra cut him off. "Oh, but I do, James. I have the right and the controlling shares to make executive decisions. That includes determining who gets to remain in this company." She looked pointedly at Rachel, whose complexion turned ghostly pale. Rachel tried to muster some bravado, but all that came out was a tremulous whisper, "You can't fire me. I've poured months." Cassandra's eyes flickered with the memory of betrayal, heartbreak, and the endless nights she'd spent rebuilding her life. "You poured months into this company," she repeated, her voice thick with sarcasm. "I poured years. I sacrificed a career, my independence, even parts of myself for Millionaire Logistics. And for James, but that's over now." She turned to the board, her expression commanding. "Effective immediately, I'm removing James Millionaire as CEO and Rachel Morgan as Marketing Director. Millionaire Logistics will be undergoing a leadership transition. There is no further discussion." A murmur of shock rippled through the board. Some gasped, others stared at Cassandra in awe. In a display of masterful calm, Cassandra then unveiled a meticulously prepared set of transition plans. Senior executives and department heads would remain, but Phoenix Prime appointed leadership would take the helm. The CFO, Eduardo Silva, quickly recognized the inevitability of it all. Fighting Cassandra now was a losing battle. James, however, was not about to quietly accept defeat. He sprang up from his seat, eyes blazing with fury, and hissed, "You're destroying everything my family built. You're punishing me for a personal matter. This is vindictive." Cassandra's gaze didn't waver. "Perhaps it is, in part, but it's also good business," she said, her voice cold with finality. "The only difference is, you taught me how cruel business can be, James. I'm just following your example." With that, the board meeting that would go down in Dallas corporate legend ended in stunned silence. James and Rachel had been publicly dethroned in the very boardroom they once ruled. Within hours of the board meeting, words spread like wildfire through the Dallas business community. Cassandra Jameson, the scorned ex-wife of James Millionaire, had seized control of Millionaire Logistics in a move worthy of a Hollywood screenplay. Phones buzzed with gossip, local news outlets scrambled for interviews, and social media exploded with heated discussions. James and Rachel were escorted from the building that same afternoon. Security staff who had always liked Cassandra for her kindness during her previous involvement with the company didn't hide their smirks as they watched the disgraced couple shuffle out. Rachel tried to feign indifference, but the humiliation was palpable. James attempted to argue, threatened lawsuits, but quickly realized he no longer held the power to command the staff. Employees who remained behind were initially uncertain about their future. However, Cassandra wasted no time addressing them. She gathered everyone in the main conference room and offered an inspiring speech about loyalty, innovation, and mutual respect. She acknowledged the Millionaire legacy while highlighting the company's need to adapt to modern market demands. Skeptics soon found themselves won over by her blend of approachability and decisive leadership. The Montemayor name will stay, she concluded, but we'll be forging a new path, one that honors the people who work here and the traditions that built this company. We'll focus on sustainable solutions, cutting-edge technology, and a culture that rewards creativity. If any of you wish to depart, I understand, but I hope you'll stay on this journey with me. The applause at the end of her speech was thunderous. Thus began the new era of Montemayor Logistics under the direction of the woman once deemed its silent force. Meanwhile, James and Rachel retreated to James's penthouse, now overshadowed by a wave of public mockery. Their phone calls to potential allies were largely ignored. Even James's old country club friends distanced themselves, reluctant to be associated with a man who had lost so spectacularly and so publicly. Rachel, too, discovered that the lavish perks of her affair had abruptly vanished. For Cassandra, it was a moment of triumphant vindication. Yet she knew all too well that there would be more challenges ahead. Building a successful future on the ruins of a broken past wouldn't be easy, but if anyone could do it, it was the woman who had already proven her resilience to the world. Just as Cassandra began to settle into her new position as the head of Montemayor Logistics, an unexpected visitor arrived at her office. Helen Montemayor, James's estranged mother. Helen had been living in Europe for the past few years. Ever since James's father died, she had handed over the company to her son, but remained a minority shareholder and was rarely involved in business decisions. Helen appeared stoic, yet regal. She asked to speak with Cassandra privately. Unsure of Helen's motives, whether maternal defense of her son or something else, Cassandra offered her a seat. "I was told by a friend in Dallas what happened," Helen began quietly, her eyes scanning the new decor Cassandra had introduced to the office. "I also saw the press coverage of James's dismissal." Cassandra nodded, unsure of how to respond. The memory of James and Rachel's betrayal was still fresh, and she felt no inclination to apologize for her actions. But Helen's demeanor was surprisingly calm. "I won't lie to you," Helen continued. "When you first married James, I was skeptical. I worried that a woman as ambitious and talented as you would overshadow him. But then I saw how you supported him, how you put your own career on hold for his sake. I respected that." Helen sighed deeply, her posture wavering. James has always wanted to prove himself worthy of this company, worthy of the Montemayor name, without anyone else's help. That pride was his undoing. "I'm not here to absolve him, he made his bed, but I do have a request." Cassandra's curiosity piqued. She leaned forward. "What is it?" Helen pulled out a small, worn leather journal. This belonged to James's father. He wrote about the company's beginnings, about the future he envisioned. He wanted Montemayor Logistics to serve the community, to adopt modern solutions, to uplift the people who work here. "I want you to honor that vision, Cassandra. Don't let James's shortcomings tarnish my husband's legacy." It was an emotional moment. Cassandra took the journal with reverence. "I promise to do everything I can to honor that vision," she said softly. For the first time since the takeover, Cassandra felt a sense of purpose beyond revenge, a legacy worth preserving. The conversation with Helen left Cassandra both humbled and invigorated, setting the tone for the next chapter of her corporate journey. With Helen's blessing and a renewed commitment to Montemayor Logistics, Cassandra embarked on transforming the company from the inside out. She initiated a rebranding campaign that highlighted not just new technology, but also the company's long-standing heritage. Employees were encouraged to share stories of their experiences, personal anecdotes about the Montemayor family and the clients they had served for decades. Cassandra quickly realized how deep the loyalty ran for the original founder, James's father. She also started philanthropic outreach. Montemayor Logistics partnered with community programs to train underprivileged youth in supply chain management and sustainability practices. This move garnered positive media coverage, further elevating the brand's reputation. Amid these developments, Cassandra found herself revisiting old wounds she thought she'd buried. The more time she spent in James's old office, the more memories surfaced, some good, some painful. She recalled the early days of their relationship, how they dreamed of revolutionizing logistics together. She also remembered Rachel, who had once been a friend. Despite her current success, Cassandra couldn't shake a lingering sense of sadness. Betrayal had stolen not just her marriage, but also the idea of a future she once cherished. That sadness nearly overwhelmed her one evening, after a long day of meetings, when she discovered a dusty box in the corner of the CEO's storage closet. Inside was a collection of items from her early days at Montemayor Logistics, concept sketches for a marketing campaign, a half-written pitch for a client in Asia, and a framed photo of her and James cutting a ribbon at a company event. She sat down on the floor and let the memories wash over her. It was a painful, yet cathartic moment. Cassandra wept quietly, for the young woman she'd been full of hopes and unwavering love. But as she wiped away tears, she felt a sense of resolve solidify within her. She had come this far, carrying the scars of betrayal and heartbreak, and now she was leading this company into a brighter era. She was no longer the woman defined by a cheating husband's choices, but a leader forging her own path. The euphoria of Cassandra's corporate and personal triumph was short-lived when James, in a last-ditch effort to reclaim his family legacy, filed a lawsuit. The legal documents arrived one morning, delivered by a grim-faced courier. James alleged that Cassandra had used inside knowledge, gained during her time as his wife and a previous informal advisor at Montemayor Logistics, to orchestrate a hostile takeover. He sought damages and asked the court to nullify her voting rights. Rachel Morgan also joined the lawsuit, claiming workplace harassment and wrongful termination. Although most legal experts and business insiders scoffed, believing James and Rachel's arguments were weak, the lawsuit still posed a headache for Cassandra. It threatened to tie the company up in lengthy, costly legal battles, and it risked tarnishing the brand she'd so carefully rebuilt. Her legal team, led by the formidable attorney Caroline Klein, mounted a strong defense. They uncovered that James, while CEO, had signed multiple agreements allowing for outside investors to purchase shares without restriction. Furthermore, any claims of insider trading were refuted by the fact that Cassandra's involvement in decision-making had ended long before the shares were acquired. Caroline Klein also found evidence of Rachel Morgan's questionable marketing expenses. Some had suspiciously high travel and entertainment budgets, hinting at personal misuse of company funds. Cassandra felt a renewed surge of indignation. She had not expected James to quietly accept his downfall, but to resort to legal subterfuge revealed how desperately he clung to power. The final straw came when James sent her a personal text, calling her manipulative and claiming she ruined him because he found love elsewhere. That night, Cassandra's anger flared hot. She was done playing the role of the wounded ex-wife. She was a corporate titan now, and she would defend her company and her accomplishments with every legal avenue at her disposal. Thus began another chapter in the saga, one fought not just in the boardroom, but in the courtroom. The media feasted on every development, painting Cassandra as a ruthless genius or a scorned woman, depending on the angle. Cassandra kept her head high, focusing on the mounting evidence that would vindicate her. If James wanted a fight, she would give him one he would never forget. As the lawsuit dragged on, Cassandra found allies emerging in unexpected places. Employees who had witnessed Rachel's manipulative tactics came forward with testimonies about her constant attempts to undermine Cassandra in the months leading up to the affair's exposure. Several senior staffers admitted they felt pressured by James to conceal financial mismanagement. Their statements bolstered Cassandra's defense, painting a picture of James and Rachel's questionable conduct while they held power. At the same time, some of Cassandra's newly hired executives proved disloyal. One of them, Bernard Lake, an external consultant with ties to James's old circle, fed confidential information about Montemayor Logistics' strategic direction to James's legal team. Cassandra discovered this betrayal through a meticulous email audit. She confronted Bernard in her office, flanked by company lawyers. "You think you're safe because James promised you a payoff?" she said, her voice cold with fury. Bernard wilted under her glare, attempting to offer a clumsy justification. Cassandra fired him immediately and made sure his severance package was minimal, well within legal boundaries. The sense of betrayal stung, but it also reminded her how treacherous corporate maneuvering could be. In response to these challenges, Cassandra doubled down on transparency within the company. She initiated an open-door policy where employees could share concerns directly with her or the new HR leadership team. This cultivated an environment of loyalty among staff who appreciated her forthright approach. Outside the walls of Montemayor Logistics, Cassandra's personal life also began to shift. Ling Zhao, her venture capitalist partner in Phoenix Prime, introduced her to a prominent tech entrepreneur, Pierce Donovan. Pierce was lean, sharp-witted, and possessed a deep admiration for Cassandra's marketing genius. Their initial meeting was all business, discussing potential collaborations between their firms. But sparks of mutual respect and genuine interest flickered, after several professional dinners turned into lengthy, laughter-filled conversations. Cassandra realized she might be ready to let someone into her life again. It felt strange to consider romance after everything she'd endured with James. Yet, as Pierce texted her lines of encouragement during stressful court proceedings, Cassandra couldn't help but feel her heart begin to thaw. Even in a whirlwind of lawsuits and corporate intrigue, she allowed herself a glimmer of hope for a personal future that wasn't dictated by betrayal. The pivotal day in court arrived like a thunderclap. Journalists swarmed the courthouse steps, eager for the drama that promised to unfold inside. Cassandra arrived with her legal team, every bit the picture of controlled confidence. James and Rachel appeared separately, each flanked by their own attorneys, both visibly anxious. Inside the hushed courtroom, Judge Mariana Givens presided, a no-nonsense figure with a reputation for exacting fairness. The attorneys presented opening arguments. James's lawyer harped on the notion that Cassandra had orchestrated a stealth takeover using insider information, painting her as a woman scorned, intent on vengeance. Rachel's counsel claimed she was unfairly targeted for personal reasons, focusing on allegations of workplace harassment. Then it was Caroline Klein's turn. She methodically dismantled each accusation. She presented dated emails showing that Cassandra had resigned from all involvement at Montemayor Logistics months before the stock transactions began. She provided evidence of board minutes, confirming that James himself had signed away protections against external takeovers. She also unveiled receipts, spreadsheets, and a thorough audit report that revealed Rachel's misuse of company funds, evidence that any CEO would have fired her for, personal entanglement or not. The courtroom grew tense as the testimonies began. Former co-workers described how Rachel often sidestepped protocol. An internal audit specialist detailed suspicious expense reports linked to Rachel. Another witness, an IT manager, disclosed that James had forced him to delete certain files, implying that James knew damaging information could surface. However, the most shocking moment came when a forensic accountant hired by Phoenix Prime took the stand. She explained that during James's tenure, Montemayor Logistics had lost millions due to poor investments, and On more than one occasion, personal withdrawals that James had misrepresented as corporate expenses. Cassandra, sitting behind her legal counsel, felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. She had suspected James was irresponsible, but not to such an extent. Yet, she remained calm, determined to see justice done. When the final gavel struck that evening, the courthouse was abuzz. Judge Givens announced that the court needed a day or two to deliberate. But the collective sense in the room was that Cassandra's team had masterfully cornered James and Rachel. Victory seemed within Cassandra's grasp, so close she could almost taste it. 2 days later, Cassandra sat in the courtroom, her heart pounding like a drum. Though her legal team was confident, the final verdict still carried an air of unpredictability. James appeared a shell of his former self, dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled, and expression anxious. Rachel's bravado had vanished. She stared at the floor, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Judge Givens read aloud from a prepared statement. She dismissed James's claims of insider trading and nullification of voting rights, citing an overwhelming lack of evidence. She also dismissed Rachel's wrongful termination claim on the grounds that the audit clearly showed misuse of company funds, justifying her dismissal. In a clear, resonant voice, Judge Givens stated, "The takeover by Phoenix Prime Ventures and Miss Cassandra Jameson adheres to all regulatory and corporate governance standards. This court finds no unlawful behavior in Miss Jameson's acquisition of majority shares. Montemayor Logistics remains under her rightful control, and all decisions made in her capacity as majority shareholder and acting CEO are valid." A wave of relief washed over Cassandra. She didn't celebrate outwardly, but could feel the tension drain from her body. The judge's final words were even more cutting for James. "Mr. Montemayor, your actions while leading Montemayor Logistics, including misrepresented expenses and attempts to destroy potential evidence, are of serious concern. While they do not fall under the purview of this lawsuit, they may warrant further investigation." James sank deeper into his seat. Rachel looked pale, as if she might faint. Reporters scrambled out of the courtroom to break the news. The moment Cassandra stepped outside, cameras flashed and microphones appeared in her face. She made a brief statement praising the justice system and her legal team, carefully avoiding any personal vindictiveness. Behind the courthouse, once she was away from the clamoring media, Cassandra let herself smile at Caroline Klein. "Thank you," she said earnestly. Caroline patted her on the shoulder, her face lighting up with mutual satisfaction. That night, Cassandra sat alone in her home office, reflecting on the surreal journey of the past 2 years. She felt a profound sense of vindication. She had fought a battle not just for the company or her reputation, but for her self-worth. And she had won. In the days following the court's decision, Montemayor Logistics stock rebounded. Employees felt a new sense of security, knowing Cassandra's leadership was legally affirmed. Several major clients who had been hesitant to renew their contracts due to the swirling controversy now signed multi-year agreements, citing confidence in the company's future. Cassandra, poised and ready, used the momentum to make major structural improvements. She finalized a merger of sorts between Montemayor Logistics and Phoenix Prime's cutting-edge AI solutions, creating a hybrid company that was both steeped in tradition and brimming with innovation. The result was Montemayor Phoenix, a new brand identity that paid homage to the company's heritage while embracing the forward-thinking ethos that Cassandra championed. National business publications took note. One magazine featured Cassandra on its cover with the headline, "From betrayed ex-wife to corporate powerhouse, the meteoric rise of Cassandra Jameson." Industry analysts predicted Montemayor Phoenix would become one of the most formidable logistics and supply chain management firms in the nation. James vanished from the public eye. Rumor had it he was living in a small villa in Cancun, licking his wounds. Rachel's social media accounts went dark, with some claiming she'd left Texas altogether. Yet Cassandra felt no urge to gloat. She was busy forging partnerships that would expand Montemayor Phoenix into global markets: Europe, Asia, South America. The future seemed limitless. Though she was swamped with work, Cassandra allowed herself personal growth too. She continued to meet Pierce Donovan for both business and pleasure. Their budding relationship offered her something she hadn't felt in a long time: genuine excitement for what lay beyond her professional ambitions. She took things slowly, valuing the trust they were building after suffering such a profound betrayal. Late one evening, Cassandra sat on the balcony of her newly purchased condominium overlooking downtown Dallas. The skyline sparkled with opportunity. She sipped a glass of crisp, white wine and gazed at the city lights. 2 years ago, she had been broken, exiled from the life she once knew. Now, she had reinvented herself as a force to be reckoned with, a woman who owned her mistakes, reclaimed her narrative, and refused to be defined by heartbreak. It was a new chapter, and she was writing it on her own terms. Despite her achievements, Cassandra sometimes battled lingering shadows of her past. Nightmares of James's betrayal invaded her dreams. She'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, remembering the moment she caught him with Rachel. Therapy sessions helped her cope, yet some wounds left permanent scars. Moving forward was a process, not a one-time decision. Business, however, remained her anchor. Montemayor Phoenix took bold steps to invest in green technology, unveiling carbon-neutral shipping corridors. This garnered praise from environmental groups and attracted a new wave of eco-conscious clients. Cassandra spearheaded these initiatives, determined to prove that a legacy logistics firm could evolve responsibly. During a high-profile industry conference in Los Angeles, Cassandra shared the stage with prominent figures, including cameo appearances by high-profile entrepreneurs like Mark Cuban, who complimented Montemayor Phoenix's commitment to sustainability. She reconnected briefly with Dr. Viola Kenshaw, her old mentor from Wharton, who beamed with pride. "I always knew you'd leave a mark," Dr. Kenshaw said, hugging Cassandra warmly. Yet, success came with its own challenges. Not everyone was thrilled at Montemayor Phoenix's dominance. Competitors launched smear campaigns, insinuating that Cassandra's personal vendetta led her to make impulsive decisions. One particularly aggressive rival, Danvers Freight Solutions, poured money into negative PR, labeling Montemayor Phoenix's sustainability drive as mere greenwashing. Cassandra responded not with vitriol, but with action. She invested heavily in transparent audits, published detailed reports on emission reductions, and invited journalists to observe Montemayor Phoenix's processes firsthand. The media narrative shifted, painting Cassandra not as an overreaching heiress, but as a genuine innovator. Danvers Freight Solutions lost credibility and eventually retreated from its smear attempts. In private, Cassandra still felt the pang of lost friendships, people who had sided with James or simply disappeared when the scandal broke. The memory of returning to her empty home, of reading Rachel's cruel social media posts, sometimes haunted her. Yet, in those moments, she reminded herself of the path she'd carved out of despair. She would not let fleeting darkness overshadow the light of her accomplishments, nor rob her of the possibility of genuine love. As her professional empire stabilized, Cassandra turned her attention toward rebuilding personal bridges. Though many friendships had unraveled during her divorce, she wanted to reconnect with those who might have distanced themselves more out of confusion than malice. One such person was her former best friend, Andrea Lopez. Andrea had been part of their tight-knit circle, but when the scandal exploded, she withdrew, afraid to take sides. Cassandra reached out with a heartfelt email, acknowledging that the situation had been tumultuous and offering to meet for coffee. No pressure. Andrea responded within an hour, sounding both apologetic and eager to reconnect. They met at a cozy cafe in Dallas, where the smell of fresh pastries and the hum of chatter made the world feel warm and inviting. At first, conversation was tentative, filled with small talk about work and family. Then Andrea's eyes glistened with tears. "I'm so sorry," she said, voice trembling. I didn't know what to do. James was telling everyone that you'd gone crazy with jealousy, and Rachel seemed so convincing. I should have known better." Cassandra reached out, squeezing Andrea's hand. "You don't have to explain," she said softly, though her voice quivered. "I'm just glad we can talk now. It was a difficult time. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt, but I do want to move forward." That afternoon stretched into evening as they swapped stories, laughter, and finally, tears of relief. By the time they left the cafe, they felt like friends again, though each recognized the dynamic had changed. This was a new chapter for both of them, a relationship forged from honesty, not illusions. Emboldened by this, Cassandra sought out other former friends and colleagues, offering reconciliation where possible. Many responded warmly, admitting they'd believed the worst because they had only heard James's side. A few, stubbornly loyal to James, rebuffed Cassandra's attempts. She let those friendships go, understanding that not everyone is meant to remain in one's life. The emotional healing that came from mending old ties was immeasurable. For all the corporate triumphs, it was these personal moments of understanding and forgiveness that truly made Cassandra feel whole again. With each passing day, Cassandra found herself relying more on the calm, steady presence of Pierce Donovan. Their initial connection over business deals blossomed into companionship, dinners, and late-night walks where they talked about everything from the future of AI to favorite childhood memories. Unlike James, Pierce encouraged her career ambitions and never appeared threatened by her success. Cassandra was hesitant to define their relationship publicly. The gossip columns, always hungry for scandal, speculated about her love life. Yet Pierce was unconcerned by the rumors. He teased her gently whenever a tabloid ran a story suggesting they were eloping. "I'm in no rush to put a label on this," Pierce said, one evening as they strolled along a quiet lake near Dallas. The sunset painted the water in orange and purple hues. "I just know that being around you feels right. No pressure, no expectations, just whatever this is." Those words resonated with Cassandra, who had spent years feeling suffocated by the demands of her marriage to James. Their evening stroll ended with a tender kiss by the water's edge, a moment that felt both simple and deeply profound. Cassandra allowed herself to hope that love need not be a battlefield of broken promises. Perhaps it could be an ever-evolving partnership grounded in respect and trust. Still, she remained cautious. The scars James left ran deep, and she wondered if she'd ever fully trust another person with her heart. She voiced these fears to Pierce, who simply listened and offered reassurance. "Healing takes time. I'm not going anywhere." In those quiet instants, Cassandra sensed a convergence of the professional and personal transformation she'd undergone. She was no longer the young marketing prodigy overshadowed by her husband's pride, nor the heartbroken ex-wife trying to salvage her life. She was an architect of her own future, forging a path that included success, purpose, and yes, love, if she dared to embrace it. Life was by no means perfect. Past hurts still flared up occasionally. The press still sensationalized her story. But for the first time in years, Cassandra felt the stirrings of genuine happiness, the kind that came from peace within rather than validation from external sources. Months after the lawsuit concluded, Cassandra received an unexpected invitation from James's mother, Helen Montemayor. Helen asked Cassandra to visit her estate on the outskirts of Dallas. Curiosity piqued, Cassandra agreed. She arrived one afternoon, greeted by an older gentleman who led her through a lush garden where Helen was sipping tea beneath a pergola. Helen stood to embrace Cassandra. "I won't keep you long," she said. I wanted to thank you for preserving my husband's vision. Montemayor Phoenix is everything he dreamed of, a company that adapts to the times but never forgets its roots. Cassandra smiled, a mixture of humility and pride warming her. "That means a lot. I'm committed to ensuring the legacy endures." Helen gestured for her to sit. They chatted about the changes in the company, shared some fond memories of the past. Eventually, Helen's gaze turned somber. "I spoke to James recently," she said softly. "He's not in a good place. I don't tell you this to invoke pity. Just know that he realizes deep down that his actions destroyed everything good in his life. He told me that. I believe he regrets it." A sharp pang resonated in Cassandra's chest. She had spent so long battling James in court and in business that she'd forgotten they once truly cared about each other. Still, she could not change the past. "I hope he finds peace," she replied, voice steady. Helen nodded. "Maybe one day he'll reach out to you. Whether you choose to respond is your decision. But for now, I think he's too ashamed to return." Cassandra finished her tea, feeling a strange combination of relief and sorrow. There was no happiness to be found in James's downfall, only a weary closure. She'd fought her battles, won the war, and now it was time to move on. When she left Helen's estate, Cassandra felt as though she'd finally closed the last chapter of her tumultuous relationship with James. She drove back toward downtown Dallas, the skyline beckoning her with infinite possibilities. Montemayor Phoenix was on the cusp of expanding its global footprint. She was forging deeper bonds with people who genuinely supported her, including Pierce. Whatever tomorrow held, she was ready to embrace it. And so ends the remarkable journey of Cassandra Jameson, once a devoted wife who discovered the brutal sting of betrayal, only to rise from the ashes mightier than ever. In reclaiming her power, she not only took back her dignity and her future, but also rebuilt a storied company, honoring its legacy while catapulting it into a new era of innovation. Through heartbreak and court battles, she proved that true strength lies in knowing your worth and daring to forge your own path. If you found inspiration in Cassandra's dramatic transformation, if you cheered her victories, empathized with her struggles, and celebrated her ultimate triumph, don't keep this story to yourself. Like this video, share it with friends who love a gripping tale of empowerment, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us all no obstacle is insurmountable and no betrayal can extinguish a determined spirit.